is make a partisan gesture out of an incredibly dangerous foreign policy move. What we're talking about here, we're going to be seeing Netanyahu in the Congress 2 days after the next deadline in these talks with Iran. The next deadline is March 1st. There's supposed to be a framework agreement by that time, which would then go on till July 1st to have all the implementation arranged. That's a very tight deadline. And the notion that Netanyahu is going to come deliberately to undermine the possibility that an agreement could go through between the U.S. and its allies, the Perm 5+1, as they call it, which means the 5 permanent members of the United Nations, the U.S., Britain, France, China, and Russia, plus Germany, are the negotiating sides. On the other side is Iran. Israel is not part of those negotiations. And the idea that Netanyahu believes that he has the right not to just interfere in the internal affairs of the United States Congress, but the notion that he has the right globally to try and scuttle this global negotiation is absolutely an outrage. What we're looking at is the possibility that there could be a real undermining of the chance for an agreement. And we should be clear here, Lawrence, that if there is no agreement with Iran and new sanctions by the Congress will scuttle any new agreement, that will definitely be true. If that happens, the alternative is war as a very likely possibility. So what we're seeing is that members of Congress who want Netanyahu to come, knowing that he represents not only his own political position, whatever that might be, but a country whose official position, despite what Secretary Kerry claimed, that we and Israel see things the same way, we just disagree on how to get there, Israel has a completely different strategic goal vis-a-vis Iran. Israel's goal, officially, is to prevent Iran from having ever the capacity to build a nuclear weapon anytime in the future, whether it's 10 years, 1 year, or 100 years from now. That's not the U.S. position. The U.S. position is to make sure Iran does not get a nuclear weapon. There's a vast cavern between those two positions. And the notion that the Congress, and this will be bipartisan, I'm afraid, as we just heard from Senator Menendez, that the Congress may see it in its interest and its rights to undermine U.S. foreign policy when there is the chance of a real negotiated solution to this long-standing crisis is a thoroughly unbelievable thing to be seeing.
Mike Tomasky, the president has said he would veto any additional sanctions that that Congress might pass.
He has, and presumably he will. You know, Lawrence, this is a really interesting throwdown. Interesting is one word for it, by Netanyahu at Obama. Now, I talked to a journalist friend of mine in Israel today who thinks it's not so much directed at Obama on Netanyahu's behalf. He thinks it's all about getting reelected, and he just wants to get reelected and get his coalition, his governing coalition, in the Knesset. I'll take his word for it. He knows. But sitting here in Washington, it's pretty hard for me not to read this in some respects, to some degree, as Netanyahu just almost taunting Obama and daring him. You know, there is talk in some liberal circles, in some pro-peace circles, of the U.S. someday getting to the point where maybe it has to reconsider some of the aspects of its relationship with Israel, the $3 billion a year, the automatic support at the United Nations. Right now, that's just talk around the edges. But if Netanyahu tests this relationship, it'd be interesting to see where this might go.